All right, so I saw Conjuring Last Rites. This is the fourth Conjuring movie and the final Conjuring movie, the final entry in the Conjuring franchise. I didn't think it was very good. And I think it's interesting because all the reviews I've seen are trying to talk around the fact that this movie isn't very good. They keep going, it's not perfect, but it's a sentimental close to the wonderful Conjuring franchise. I'm like, no, it's pretty bad, you know? And like those first two Conjuring films aren't really my speed of horror. I think they're quite simple. I think the scares are really over the top and silly and almost feel like Marvel action scenes. But at the same time, I think a lot of the direction needs to be respected. I think there's a lot of really well done tension in those quiet scenes. And even if I don't like the payoffs, I think the way James Wan was able to capture dread and tension is really effective. I think the weak point of this franchise was always held it back for me is the fact that it never really feels like the stakes are all that high. It always feels like, you know, characters will show up and kind of give Lorraine or Ed a bit of a spook, and then that's kind of it. Rinse and repeat for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And this last entry is 2 hours and 20 minutes. It has no right being 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now, I will say, this new Conjuring movie, all right, when it's about Lorraine and Ed Warren, played by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, it's actually not terrible. It's kind of strange. The best part of this horror movie is just when Lorraine and Ed and their daughter are all kind of talking about, you know, trying to adjust to a family home life, a new town, whatever they're kind of up to at the moment, in the backdrop of being paranormal investigators. Like, one of my favorite scenes in this movie is Ed has some people over for a barbecue and he's just like, yo, let's go down to the basement and check out all my haunted goodies. And they're like, all right, Ed. It's hilarious. I found it so funny. Like, just that's what he does in his spare time. He's like, yo, this is the doll that killed like 17 people. How's that? And even though I'm taking the mickey, I actually kind of enjoyed those sections. Just the family hanging out. There's a whole subplot around a guy that wants to propose to their daughter, which I thought was both funny, charming, and actually occasionally kind of well written. But where this movie stumbles is the horror stuff. You get wrapped up in Lorraine and Ed Warren as characters, and then you have to jump to the most boring ass family ever who have purchased this like haunted mirror. Sorry, they haven't purchased the haunted mirror. They got a haunted mirror in a swap meet. It's like the world's worst birthday present, by the way. It's given as a birthday present to one of the young children, and it deadass has a crack in it. And the lady that gave it's just like, yeah, don't mind the crack. I'm like, it's a mirror, babe. Like, yes, mind the crack. What a shit gift. Anyways, not only is it a shit gift because it's a broken mirror, it's a shit gift because this mirror is haunted and now this whole family is haunted, but you know nothing about any of this family. All of the character development, all of the kind of emotional investment in this story is with the paranormal investigators, but the movie spends just as much time with this undercooked family of like 9 or 10 people, and you're just like, what are we doing? Like, in my opinion, the Conjuring movies should have turned into essentially what Supernatural, the TV show, became, where you follow the cases from their POV and you meet these people that have this, you know, paranormal entity in their house through the paranormal investigator's eyes. Then you wouldn't be that annoyed. But when you're spending like an hour plus with this boring ass family, it really starts to drag. Like, the characterization is so minimal and shoddy here. On top of that, of course, this movie has to go bigger and better than any other Conjuring movie before. So in the back end, we get truly like DC slop levels of horror action. That's the only way to describe what starts happening. It genuinely turns into CGI gobbledygook, and I don't think that mixes well with what is meant to be a film in the horror slash suspense genre. Like, minor spoilers here, but there is a visualization of an Annabelle doll at one point where it is basically like a giant kaiju in a house. And I could not believe what I was watching. At another point, a mirror literally charges at someone. I'm not making this up. I genuinely was remembering this movie and thought it must have been part of a fever dream. But at one point, this haunted mirror turns on its side, right? Turns horizontal and then goes ooga booga booga boo and like charges at the camera. And as a result, in turn, are characters. It's absurd. On top of that, I just don't think there's a real good way to make kind of exorcisms or like the power of Christ compels you. I don't think that should be framed like an action scene, you know? If you watch the original Exorcist movie, it's kind of shot just like fly on the wall, like here's what's happening. But in The Conjuring 4, Patrick Wilson will be like, the power of Christ compels you, and the, you know, the camera will like zoom in like it's an action scene. It's just a little much. It's just a little much. And I'm sitting there with this crowd that was not engaged at all. Most of them fell asleep in the character development stuff, and we're all just collectively sitting there going, what are we watching? Hi guys, just brief intermission while while I'm editing because there's something I forgot to mention about this movie. All right, these are some of the worst posters ever. Look at this shit. All right, now I will say, I didn't mind this one, the red one, where it looks like, oh, let's both lose our minds together. I'm like, okay, they're kind of cooking here. And if the movie had been about, you know, Lorraine and Ed finally losing it together, that would have been a great poster. So this one's fine. But then we get this one. Oh boy, this one's so bad. Look at that goofy ass. Oh my god. But it gets worse. It gets worse. I think this one here is one of the worst posters I've ever seen. The case that ends it all. And it looks like they're like praying through time. You know, it looks like they've hit hyperspeed on the Millennium Falcon, but through like a Bible. And they're like, oh, the power of Christ compels us into hyperspeed. It's so bad, man. Look at that shit. Look at that. Who's in charge of these posters? And by the way, this is a shot in the movie. So during the movie, I was like howling because I was like, I can't believe, not only did you think this looked good in the movie, but you were like, fuck yeah, this is the main poster. Guys, this is the main poster. I just think this is hilarious. And so much of this movie and so much of this franchise, to be honest, is completely bogged down by this whole true story framework they've chosen to go to. Now, that will be a defense some people have, all right? The idea that like, well, of course no one was going to die because this is based on true events. But I don't really think that's like the world's greatest excuse. And the reason I say that is those first couple Conjuring movies were very loosely based on true events. You know, it was like, oh, someone had a spooky doll once. Let's turn this into a whole 2-hour movie where this thing happens and this thing happens. Yeah, I mean, like they really stretch the stories. And I just think, in my opinion, sometimes you need to diverge from the truth or just not bog yourself down by being factually accurate. Do you get what I mean? Like, I don't think at any point in the real life case did a mirror charge at anyone or did a giant Annabelle doll walk around. So if you're going to play with that, maybe just include some extra characters that die. Maybe include, or don't base it on a true story. Maybe have Lorraine and Ed, who are real characters, investigate a fictional case. I don't think too many people are going to be that annoyed. You know what I mean? Even those Amityville horror movies were fictionalized versions of true events. And I just think this idea that like, oh, well, no one was going to die and the demons are always pulling their punches because no one died in real life. I'm like, but you're making a movie. You're making a movie that's already hanging out in the realm of fiction. Like, at least give us some stakes. Have someone do something, because 90% of this movie is like a cool visually designed demon. Like, admittedly, the demon designs for some of them, there's an axe guy that's really cool. You'll have a cool designed demon basically coming up to a helpless person with an axe and then either missing or just like playing with their food. And that's all they do for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, I need some stakes. I need something, you know, but this movie just refuses to give it. It's just blue balls the movie for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And so much of this movie's execution is goofy. The effects are pretty wonky too. And I think at this point, we've also just seen this sort of routine before. All of the scares are just like, oh, she's about to open the door. Oh, the scary thing isn't in front of her. It's behind her. Gotcha. And it's like, come on, man. Like, can we actually write some stuff into one of these movies that lingers with you past the initial jump scare? You know, my favorite type of horror is stuff that in the car ride home, you're like, oh, how awful would it be to feel like your destiny was predetermined? Or how awful would it be to realize your mom was doing this or your dad was doing this or you never stood a chance? Like, conceptually horrific stuff. If you're not going to do that, like, what are we doing? And I just think it's a shame because we are in the golden age of horror. I saw a re-release of Nope recently, which is an alien movie, but there's a scene in that is horrifying. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But on top of that, like, we've had Bring Her Back, we've had Weapons, and now as a result, Conjuring Last Rites just feels like the death rattle of a once great franchise, in my opinion. You know, like, we've got so many great horror movies from big studios as well, not just like indie studios like A24. Weapons is a massive hit, a massive studio release, and you've got Conjuring just leaning back on tired, lazy, boring tropes, in my opinion. Anyways, to air out more of my complaints, we needed to get into spoilers. Don't see this movie. I don't think it's very good. Let's get into spoilers. 3, 2, one. Now, before we get into spoilers, please consider getting a membership to this YouTube channel. Links for the Patreon and the YouTube membership are in the description below. Every 2 weeks, you get access to a podcast where I cover every single new release and every single thing I've rewatched or watched in my own time. And it's for the cost of a cup of coffee. So please consider it. It really helps out the channel. Now, spoiler talk for The Conjuring Last Rites. As I said, no one dies in this movie. And the whole movie, they're being like, oh, Ed, he has a heart condition, like taking on the demons. It's too hardcore. He can't do this anymore. He's going to die. And I was like, oh, wouldn't this movie be great if, like, you know, he doesn't like the guy that's trying to propose to his daughter, and then, you know, he like saves him and he dies on the way out, but he knows that guy's a good guy and will take care of his daughter. Yes, it's very conventional storytelling. We've seen this a million times before, but I'm like, you know what? You've kind of like set up all the pieces, but Ed ends up being fine. I guess that was just kind of the movie's way of saying, like, we're not going to make any more of these movies. Here's an in-universe reason that they need to stop because of Ed's wonky ticker. You know, on top of that, this movie kind of like really celebrates the Warrens. You know, like it's real. Like the whole closing chunk of this movie is like, you know, their daughter's getting married and they'll be happy forever. And then you just have the most grim, depressing little outro title crawl where it's like, actually, they both carked it very shortly after. And I'm like, oh man, like it was just a bit strange. It's just overall a strange movie. You watch 4 movies in this franchise that is an utter fiction, you know, like The Curse of La Llorona or whatever it's called, both the Nun movies. What else is there? There's all the Conjuring movies. They're all mostly bullshit. But now I will say, I did really like that opening section. I thought we were cooking in the opening section a fair bit. We have a flashback section, I guess, to the birth of their daughter, Ed and Lorraine's daughter. And like, that would have been awesome. And that, I was like, oh, we're heading in for an awesome movie. I thought the whole movie was going to be about like, oh, the demons are after our daughter. And yeah, there's kind of some of that. Like she gets possessed at some point, I think. But like, I was really like, oh, there's this idea that like these demons are after their daughter. I thought the whole last movie was going to be this really intimate story of Ed and Lorraine have been able to help all these other families, but they can't help their own. I'm like, what a great way to bring home the franchise. But then the movie's like, nah, random family, haunted mirror, giant Annabelle doll, fuck it. And I'm like, what a shame, because that opening intro, I was like, wow, you could take this so many different directions. What a fantastic, exciting idea. And I love the casting of the young Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson. They didn't just Disney digital de-age. They were really cooking here. And basically, yeah, for the first 20 minutes, they cooked. And then from there, they just like let the broth pour all over the kitchen. Very disappointing. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And like I mentioned before, please consider getting a membership to this channel. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day.